with Texas Education 911, and I am bringing you a news story from West Texas. We have a parent, and she is in Canyon ISD. Would you please welcome our parent? And would you please tell us what happened at the end of 2020?
Um, uh, well, it's kind of a long story, but um, basically, my daughter, who's an athlete at one of the high schools in Canyon ISD, was for 2 years, but I guess this was her junior year, and she had been repeatedly harassed by her coach. She was seeing a counselor. She just, this has gone on for 2 years. I had documented incident after incident, had tried to solve the problem directly with the school and the athletic directors, and really there was no success with that. So, my only option was to file a local grievance. So I filed the level 1 grievance with Canyon ISD, and that was in December of 2020. And I included all my documented incidences. And so then I guess that was right about the time there was the holiday, Christmas break, came back. Well, my daughter come back in January after, the break. She basically during the months of January and February of 2021, her coach, basically, I think what the school district was trying to do was trying to find a way or story to come up with to, I guess, retaliate against us. And he, at least on this coach at her high school, entered her locker room. She'd always eat lunch in the locker room by herself, usually because she liked to have her alone time and eat lunch in peace. Well, at least a half a dozen times he showed up in the locker room, basically harassing her and looking around and, knowing that she was in there alone eating lunch. And so, what, I guess that, this happened many times. She'd come home and tell us about it. She thought it was really strange, but I guess they're probably at the end of February, beginning of March, we got a call from CPS, and the report was that she was not being fed, that she was being starved because this coach couldn't find trash in the trash can in the locker room at lunchtime. So he was claiming that she was not eating and not being given food. But my daughter, she was eating lunch in there, but a lot of, she usually, what she did is she carried fresh foods in containers, usually is what she ate at lunch. So she didn't have a lot of trash in the trash can. So that was one of the complaints that was, that one of the complaints filed against us with the CPS issue. And then the other complaint was that she was being punished because she's a runner. She's a long distance runner. The complaint was that we were punishing her by making her do 12-mile long runs, which, you couldn't punish my child to run. She loved to run. And, but so that was basically the complaint from CPS. And CPS, I mean, I thought it was absurd. I was just kind of blown away whenever, the CPS social worker called us. I was kind of like, wow. But anyway, she came out to the house. She was very nice. She immediately thought the complaint was ridiculous and retaliatory, from what she told me. They came out to our house, found out that, there was food everywhere in our house. Our kids were not being starved. They were being well taken care of. And, it was really a waste of her time and resources. And that was kind of the indication that she gave to me. So, yeah, she luckily, she was a really nice lady. And I asked her, who exactly, I mean, because I was just kind of like, who filed this or who called in this complaint? Um, and she said, well, I can't tell you, I can tell you that it was somebody from Canyon. She did tell me it was from somebody from Canyon ISD, but she couldn't give me the name. So that's basically what happened. Uh, uh, so, nothing ever came of that. Basically, we were cleared of that. It was just kind of a waste of time and resources. But when I went to the level 2 grievance sometime shortly thereafter, I brought that up, really nothing was, they kind of, denied the whole situation. And, uh, I guess they really didn't see anything wrong with what happened. They actually, acted like they had nothing to do with it. And then we went on to the level 3 grievance, which took place, I think, in May of 2021. We went in front of the school board, and, uh, that was brought up. And the assistant superintendent was like, no, that was just some anonymous person that reported that from the school district. And they reported it to the bridge in nearby, which is like a children's advocacy center. They basically, acted like they had nothing to do with it. So, um, uh, nothing ever came of that. In the level 3 grievance, they really didn't care. They, you know, I guess the board unanimously like voted against us and our wishes to protect our child. And, yeah, just, that.
What were the wishes? What were you asking for to protect your child?
Well, at the time I was asking for that another another running coach there at the school, to train my daughter, because this had been going on for 2 years or over 2 years straight. And at the time I didn't know that the federal 504 could actually help protect my kid. I mean, I guess we don't really go about looking for any way we can to protect, that way. That, we had to end up hiring a lawyer after that grievance and to continue fighting for our daughter. And it went into, that's the next step that we took to protect my daughter. So, and nothing ever really came of that either. So,
Is she, she's a couple years older now. And if I
mhm.
remember, you told me that I think she's a senior now.
She is now in college. She just finished her freshman year of college.
Okay, good. Was she able to continue to run the last couple years competitively, or did this impact?
She tried to, but eventually her last semester, she did not run the cross country season, her senior year, because of this issue. It was not resolved. The school did not care. She was like, a Division I collegiate type runner. The school did not care. They did not find a way. They said, oh, well, you're going to continue training with this coach or you're not going to run. So she chose not to run that cross country season. But then she wanted to run track. She did run cross country races like on her own, but, unattached, but she could not run with the UIL. So, but she decided by the spring semester of her senior year that she needed to run track, and she attempted it, but it ended up where the coach basically, I don't know who you blame, but it basically, I see it as, she was overtrained by the coach, and she ended up getting a stress fracture and was injured and basically had to redshirt her whole first year of her college athletics because of that issue, because she had a pretty severe stress fracture that took her about a year to recover. So here in the last few months, she's just now started to be able to run consistently and regularly. So, but yeah, when she was a state champion, a couple times over at least. One of the most valuable runners to ever go through that high school. And when she got injured, coach just, okay, bye,
Mhm.
that was kind of his attitude. He just didn't care. The school district didn't care. So yeah, that was the attitude towards us. So,
And so you
nothing.
filed as kind of a summary back in December 2020. The coach was behaving inappropriately. He was coming into the locker room and
Yes,
where your daughter was, which is not an appropriate place for a male coach to be in a female locker room. And he
exactly.
was being inappropriate with training. It sounds like he wasn't recognizing when he was pushing her too far. Were there
Um,
any other, like, documented in, you mentioned that you had several documented incidents. Were there any other documented incidents that you wanted to bring up, or do they all kind of fit into those two categories?
um, I have a whole list and I try to just block it all out because I hate
Yeah.
thinking about it. But um, yeah, I mean, basically the whole starting from the time she was a freshman in high school. I mean, it got to be where it was a daily, a weekly, just kind of verbal and mental abuse nonstop. Just trying to beat her down. And, she ended up she was in counseling for a year and a half, 2 years, trying to deal with these issues. Just so, because, she was a stellar athlete. Um, and, she didn't want something like this to, uh, keep her from, obtaining her goals and dreams. And, really transferring to another school was not an option. There's penalties for having to do that. And she didn't want to have to sit out a year. Um, although that was something that we did look into. Um, but that's was not really she didn't really see that as being a feasible option for her. So, um, we try to take care of it, by first confronting the school district and the athletic directors. And, it was just all a cover up. They didn't care that she and the counselor even came in and said, hey, this is a real issue after, spending a year and a half or so, or, it was several months. She was going to weekly counseling. She said this is a problem and he is the culprit. And they just tried to they didn't want to do anything. They wanted to protect the coach, and I guess they saw it as a way, well, she needs to toughen up, and
Mm.
this is part of growing up. And we're not going to remove her from this man. So that they
When
were
you
just hell
asked for her,
bent on not finding a solution, or in the solution that we and she felt appropriate.
right, and you were asking that she effectively be coached by someone else during cross country season. My kids are athletes, and but they have never run cross country. So just so that I can understand a little bit, is for a high school the size of Canyon ISD, is there just one coach for cross country, or is there like a head coach and assistant
Well,
coaches?
I
How does that
was
work?
asking that the boys coach her, and they would not. They said that was not possible. But then again, too, she was kind of an exceptional runner. She could run with a lot of the boys anyhow. It could have easily been done, but it wouldn't have been a good image for the coach. And so they were like, no, that we're not going to do that. And we don't really care about what the problems that your child has been having with this particular coach.
Right, and so you weren't asking for him to be fired, you weren't asking for them to go
No,
hire a new coach,
no.
you were asking them to effectively allocate resources slightly different, so that
Mm,
she could be protected. And so it's interesting because we have parents all across the state who continue to run into these brick walls with the school districts, even when the
mhm.
parents are coming with very valid concerns. And even if they wanted to try to say, she needs to be tougher, you're just being a difficult parent, you have a counselor that is stepping up and saying the coach is part of the problem. And so effectively you had corroborating evidence that you weren't just being a difficult parent or an overbearing parent, which
Mhm.
I think they oftentimes try to make all of us out to be.
Yeah,
And so,
they were trying. Yes, exactly. The whole process, they were trying to demonize me in particular and my husband, that we were the problem. I guess that's why they felt it necessary to call CPS so they could find some way to demonize us and make us look like we are the problem. But they failed at that. They couldn't find anything, wrong in our household. It was just it was ridiculous, like the social worker said. So
Right. And then in addition, obviously, of just the whole grievance process, the fact that some employee from Canyon ISD actually filed a complaint with CPS, which was obviously retaliatory.
oh
And
yes,
that's a whole nother level of inappropriateness by the school districts, and we are actually seeing that all across the state. Parents are being targeted, and there is a good piece of legislation that we're hoping will cross the finish line this session that will keep people from being able to report to CPS anonymously. And that would be a really big deal. Their identity would be kept confidential, but they would have to identify themselves if they are going to file a complaint against someone and get
yes,
CPS out to their house effectively. And that should go a long ways in curbing a lot of this retaliatory stuff that's happening with CPS and school districts. They're basically weaponizing CPS to try to silence parents. And so I'm
exactly,
so sorry that you guys had to endure that, that your daughter had to endure that. It's unacceptable, and I'm sorry that the way that the district behaved couldn't be a meeting of the minds and trying to do what is best for your daughter, because you guys obviously were not asking for something that was inappropriate or something that a school district shouldn't have to try to do and accommodate. And it would have only made her a better runner. If she was running with the boys, it would have only made her stronger. She would have become faster
exactly,
because it would have pushed her to be faster, and it would have made
exactly.
Union ISD that much better,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I just don't get that. I just don't get my whole experience with, unfortunately, because I'll be honest, I grew up in Canyon ISD schools, and I just it's really sad and to see what it has become. I mean, and that's just from my own experiences. I never would have had this change of heart about this my own school district that I grew up in, if I hadn't gone through this experience and learned of other people's experiences too within this school district. I know this is not the first time that that this is kind of a regular occurrence, this pushback on parents within this school district. So it's really disappointing because this is kind of like, this is my kind of my hometown that I moved back to. So,
right.
and it's
Um,
shocking. It's really shocking. And I just feel like what is happening here, where, the schools are not about the children anymore. And they want to demonize and weaponize the parents, to make sure, kind of, you know, I just feel like they don't want to work in collaboration with the student and the parents. They want to control the students. They want to control the parents, and make us feel like, when we reach a difficult point, that we have no power. We have no rights. And I'm like, our tax dollars go here, and yeah, but they don't see it that way. Well, if you don't like your kid in public school, then you should go somewhere else and find some other option. We're not going to accommodate you. We do things a certain way, and we're going to do it our way. And it's about us. It's not about the children.
Right. And that's so unfortunate. One of the things that parents across the state have been basically begging lawmakers to do is to create what's called an ombudsman. And that's kind of a weird word, but
Mhm.
it's used in other areas. Like if you have a mom or a grandma in a nursing home and you go in and you see that they're being abused or the laws aren't being followed, you actually have a phone number you can call. You can call the state ombudsman, and they basically come and do an independent investigation and hold the nursing homes accountable. And what we as parents have been asking for this legislative session is a parent ombudsman for education, where so when this would happen, and you weren't getting any help from the school district, and then a second issue where they called CPS and it was totally retaliatory, in both of those situations, you should be able to call the state and basically initiate an independent investigation. And until we have something like that, no matter how much we change the education code and try to improve the laws, we are not going to be able to protect parents and children.
Exactly. And that was my experience. The next step when we were in this process, through the grievance process, and then after the grievance, we hired an attorney to, use a federal 504 to get what my daughter needed, the relief that she needed. But the whole process, it was the exact same people within the administration handling every step of the way. There was no independent investigation, no independent outside person, taking care of the next step. It was just the same people, the very same people in each step of the grievance process. And even when there was a so-called impartial hearing for the federal 504, they hired their lawyer, we had our lawyer, and it was the same people that were handling the situation in the grievance process from the school district. So
Yeah.
yes, there is there's no accountability anywhere.
No checks and balance.
Yeah, I think I heard your husband in the background saying there's no checks and
Yeah, he
balances.
says there's no checks and balances at all. And I'm sure from our experience, I'm sure this goes on everywhere. And you're exactly right. We do need to have the opportunity to have independent investigators come in and look at things objectively to bring some accountability to Canyon ISD and other school districts.
Well, I really appreciate your time today and explaining what happened. And again, I'm so sorry for what your family has gone through, but I do very much appreciate you being willing to share your story, because I do know there are stories like this all across the state. And sometimes parents can't speak up because of the risk of retaliation. And so thank you for being so brave. And thank you for, we have talked in the past, and you came and testified at the Capitol, and that's what we need right now. Is we need parents that are standing up and kind of sounding the alarm bell, so that our legislators can no longer ignore what is really going on. And so thank you again for yourself, your husband, and I pray everything works out well with all of your family, and that hopefully all of this that you guys have gone through has just made you stronger and more resilient and more determined. And again,
oh
thank
yes,
you so
and that's exactly what the kind of example. At first when we went through this with our kids, I was just like, is this really? You kind of doubt. Is this at such a young age? Is this what's best for them? But you know what? Especially my older daughter, she's so much more resilient. She's going to college out of state. She's very independent. She is really. I think this whole situation has really been for the better for her, and has made her a stronger person, and, made her realize, who she is and what she's capable of. And looking back now, I wouldn't have changed a thing. So I just encourage other parents to stand up, and take a stand, without fear, and, without fear of intimidation and retaliation. So, anyhow, hopefully I've got 2 kids still that still have one more year of high school. So we will press on.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being so courageous. And if anybody's listening, if you're a parent, a grandparent, and you have a story to tell, we want to help you tell it. That's the only way we're going to affect change. So please email texased911@gmail.com if you have a story that you would like to tell. And thanks again for being with us today. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.